When I do my long runs, especially for something like a 200-mile run, I think about those that are not here. I think about the times that I almost took my life, my friends that are currently struggling. I think about that flag that I'm holding, that flag that takes me to the next mile. We lose 22 veterans a day, and it's just so unfortunate that they don't have someone to go to, talk to, listen to. I was in the Marine Corps. I served almost 6 years. When 9/11 hit, all the bomb threats, things that I never thought I would see. So when I got out, I didn't even know what PTSD was really. I just knew that I was not the same. I started experiencing like anxiety, depression, outbursts. When I found myself in those dark places, I was that proud Marine, I'm like, oh no, I can do this on my own. Like, I don't need to talk about it. Well, I learned that the very hard way. That's when I started to see a therapist. That's when I was then diagnosed with PTSD. Running has helped me in so many different ways. It was something that I had to do because it would relieve that stress, something that would make me feel better. I didn't worry about any problems. I felt that that was my medicine. The unique thing about this run is that every mile that I run, I place a flag with the name of a veteran that's struggling with PTSD or took their lives. And this is my way of paying it forward to inspire others, to motivate others. If I can save someone's life, even just by getting out for another day, that's what makes me go to the next mile. Dear Lupita, your dedication has helped many fellow veterans to know that we are not alone, to bring light to our brothers and sisters who struggle and those who have lost the struggle. I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you have done and will continue to do. Letters like this motivate me to continue doing this run because there's still veterans that I need to honor, so they know that no matter the hardship that you may encounter, there is someone out there that loves you. Don't give up.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sherman Gillums Jr. I am the Chief Strategy and Impact Officer for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Today, I'm joined by two fellow Marines, Major Kim Rossiter, codenamed Rooster. He is the president of Ainsley's Angels. And also Lupita Hernandez. She is the founder of Run for Their Lives. They're both ASICS Uplift ambassadors, and today we're going to talk about how the Marine Corps shaped their lives and their views on mental wellness. How's everybody doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing well.
Thanks for the introduction, Sherman. Very well.
Now, all three of us are Marines. We all came from different places and backgrounds to start our military careers on those famous yellow footprints to start our journey, beginning with recruit training. Now, I want to start with you, Lupita, and ask you, why did you join the Marine Corps, and how would you describe your journey in uniform?
Yes, so I have several reasons why I joined the Marine Corps. I was top percent of my class, top 10% graduating from high school, got into college right away, but I found out college wasn't for me. That first year I was put on academic probation, meaning 1 year where I can't do anything academically. So I had to stand by, and I did not want to do that. just because my dad had paid for college and I didn't have the resources or people to help me, apply for scholarships. So I was put on academic probation, and the best friend of mine from high school talked to me about the Marine Corps. Love the uniform. I love what it, embodies. So I said, sure, why not? Uh, Mind you, I was very, very shy person where people definitely did not see me being a Marine. So I love challenges. So for me, it was like, sure, let's do this. But not only that, and probably not the best idea for me to join and pretty much an male predominantly, organization, you could say. I went through a situation where I was raped and I needed to get away from home. I needed to get away from everybody from here. I needed to escape. And that opportunity came. So I said, hey, maybe this is something that would um, make me a stronger person. And it did. So when I got in as a Marine, supply administration, supply admin was not for me. So I wanted to, like I mentioned before, I wanted to take up on a challenge. So I heard about the Marine Security Guard, applied for the program, and it was something that really made me even a stronger person. With about 85 graduates, um, 5 females that graduated. At the end of the 3 year tour, I was the only female standing to actually complete the whole program. So it really gave me a sense of a lot of confidence, and that anything I put my mind to, that I'm capable of doing. So anytime I hear Marines, fellow brother or sister, I get goosebumps. I proudly say that I am a Marine, not a former Marine, a Marine. So
First of all, I want to say thank you for sharing that tough part of your story. While we hope that it never happens to young people in particular, or anyone for that matter, unfortunately, it does happen. And a lot of people join the Marine Corps to look for the empowerment that new identity brings to them after hardship. So I want to thank you for being courageous enough to share that. I hope somebody watching will also find strength and empowerment in your courage. And now, Rooster, I want to turn to you with the same question. What did it mean for you to join the Marine Corps? Why did you join, and how would you describe your journey in uniform?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Sherman. And yeah, Lupita, thanks so much for having the vulnerability here to kick this off. I appreciate that you took us on that journey. It really sets the stage for just having a frank and raw conversation. So thanks again, Lupita. The answer to your question is resources just weren't necessarily available to go directly from high school to college. And I had dreams and aspirations, frankly, wanting to become an FBI agent. So I spoke with an FBI agent and asked, how do you make that leap? How do you become part of the FBI? And he spelled it out really simply. He said, you can go to college and there's certain degrees that we prefer when you apply, or you can go into the military and focus your attention in the intelligence community. And at that point, I was like, well, that's isn't that intriguing? Huh? Let me look into this. And spoke to my dad about it. And he said it was a young person's decision to join the service. And as that resonated and sunk in, I started thinking more about it. What does that mean? Well, when you're 40, you can't necessarily go to the recruiter and join the service. So a young person's opportunity, and an opportunity that could provide, a gateway, additional opportunities. So that's the short version of why and how I found my way to the recruiting office. But I didn't start with the Marine Corps. I actually started with the Air Force and then looked at the Navy. But when I walked out of the Navy recruiter's office, there he was, a United States Marine Corps sergeant in full dress blue uniform, 6'3", 220 pounds. And I said, I want that. That's what I want. I want to be that. And it was special to be able to see in that moment what you wanted to be. And we've talked a lot about that in the past few years, about how it's difficult to become something if you can never see what that looks like. And in that moment, I was fortunate enough to see that that's what I wanted to be. And the Marine sergeant looked down at me in a way as if to say, "What are you looking at? Why are you staring at me?" And it was almost just the look in and of itself, to Lupita's point, that was a challenge just in the look. One thing led to another. I went on into the Marine Corps, served almost 25 years. And you asked me, how was the journey? It was a series of circles and waves. In fact, I talked about that at my retirement ceremony. Circles and waves, where you come into contact with different people along the journey, and there are highs and there are lows of the journey. And I think it really is similar to the journey of life, the journey of our days, the circles and the waves. So thanks for letting me kind of talk about that, Sherman. It took me back to that moment when I first saw a Marine sergeant saying, "Do you have what it takes to be a United States Marine? Sign me up." Anyway, I hope I answered your question.
You did. And I want to preface my next question by saying your dad is a wise man, because one of the reasons it's a young person's decision to join the Marine Corps is because we run every day, everywhere we go, just about. We run as individuals, we run in squad or platoon formation, and a lot of times we're moved most when we hear cadence, which can make the difference in terms of running through a hard 5-miler or a tough 10-miler out at Leatherneck Square or the Grim Reaper at Camp Pendleton, depending on which side of the country you trained. Back then, we did it to stay in fighting condition. Most of the time, I had a pair of ASICS sneakers on when I was running. And it builds up camaraderie within the unit. But how has running become a catalyst for managing your mental health after service? Both of you are leaders of organizations where there's a theme around wellness that begins with running. And I want to go back to you, Rooster, and then Lupita. How has running become a catalyst for managing your mental health, particularly when life gets tough?
It was during my deployment to Iraq in 2005 when Lori voiced some concerns about Ainsley's progression. Ainsley's physical therapist told us that there was a new group called Team Hoyt Virginia Beach. We got down there, and Ainsley got put into the running chair. I can remember that exact moment where her face just lit up like the sun. It was just so grabbing and so just joyful.
I just never imagined that going for multiple runs with my daughter would ever have led to a family of 35,000 people. That's positive energy that is undeniably beautiful. To live uplifted is to just be the brightest light you can be. And if you can find that through running, if you can find that through giving, leverage it, harness it, and make your light brighter.
There's so many ways that I could answer that question, but I think it requires context, my answer. Having experienced what some have described as one of the worst things that a parent can experience or a human can experience, which is the death of my daughter at the age of 12, I was faced with a lot of options. I could have chosen to allow the darkness to fill my everyday. I could have opted to combat the darkness in a way that made sense for me. And I found that running, specifically every single day, outside, rain or shine, less than 11-minute mile for 1,492 days in a row, is how I was able to grieve actively the loss of not just my daughter, but even before that, her diagnosis, and watching the toll it was having on her body. So by consciously engaging in movement and having the ability to do so, and recognizing and appreciating that I had the ability to do so, allowed me to quickly see that my body can become so fit through this running process, but it's really what is happening inside my mind as I'm in my thoughts, working through one step after another. That idea of just keep moving forward, it's kind of a metaphor, but when running, it's not really a metaphor. It's reality. Keep moving forward. It's played a big part, Sherman, huge part in my healing, quite frankly, and to this day, my active grieving. Thank you for that question.
I appreciate that, Rooster. And as we turn to Lapita, I just want to mention there may be somebody watching this. We're not doctors. I don't think any of us claim to be mental health professionals, but the way you two talk about how you turned hardship into a form of hope that led to healing um, may become that chapter in somebody else's survival guide. And I thank both of you for allowing us this insight into your lives, where for most people it might have broken the individual. And so, Lapita, I'll turn to you and ask you the same question about how running became a catalyst for managing your mental health after service, after everything you've gone through, and you do it in a way that honors the service and spirit of so many others. But how did that become a catalyst for you?
Yes, so for me, it's a little bit different than Rooster. I found myself and wow in the Marine Corps, um, being overseas. I was always attached to my parents and never really gone, anywhere outside from home. So got myself overseas, and relationship as well. Well, it led to one thing to another where I attempted suicide a couple of times, and got sent to Walter Reed and got almost took me away from finishing the program, Marine Security Guard. As to why I mentioned earlier, I was the only one standing, because to me it meant a lot to have been, to have finished the program. So I've always been a runner. I discovered that when I was in the third grade that I was pretty good at running, did track, cross country. But when I left the Marine Corps, um, doing it so much, as you mentioned, it was kind of like a mandatory thing, that we got to do it. So I kind of lost my passion for that running. When I got out, I took several years where I didn't really want to do anything with running. Several years later, I was faced with pretty much being homeless. I lost my job. Um, so many other adversities, hardships, challenges that I didn't ever think that I would face. And I did. So I said, let's go, let me go on a run. Um, and I did. I did it for a couple of days, weeks. That's when I found out that running was my outlet. Running was something that helped me mentally, helped me be stress free, helped me to find that peace that I thought I had lost. And so moving forward, I felt that I was loving running, but I needed that passion. So a couple of years later, I that's when I started running for a purpose, for a passion. Being a veteran, having a lot of comrades that have lost someone, but not only just comrades, it could just be a friend, a coworker, and they struggle with PTSD. So for me to be able to run for their lives, or create run for their lives, and to honor a veteran, to let them know, hey, you're not alone. We face through difficulties, challenges, but know that you can reach out and know that you can. And so I want to be that advocate for that, for them. I want them to know. And so when I first did my first run, the 200 miles from San Antonio to Houston, it was unbelievable. After 3 days, I got like so many text messages, 800, 1,000 text messages, to the point where I got those messages, and they were messages of encouraging, positive, such as, hey, Lupe, thank you for doing what you're doing. You've gave me the motivation to get out the couch and go do a 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile run start getting them more and more. And that's when I noticed that I was making a difference in someone's life. So if I can keep this going, raise this awareness, get more people out there. And we're third year. So it has been an amazing journey. And for me, it has helped me tremendously to where uh, I have my days sometimes, but I don't have those attempts, thoughts of what I did previously.
As I listened to both you, Lapita and Brewster, you talked about losing a precious child. You talked about being close to the point of giving up completely and being homeless. And all I see is strength in both of you. And the reason why I see that is because you've given a real purpose to what at one point was a form of suffering and hardship. And instead of trying to tuck it away and hide it and in some way downplaying it in an attempt to look strong, you actually come across as very courageous individuals for the way you tell your story and the way you, more importantly, talk about what recovery looks like, and even more importantly, how you share that with others and help their recovery as well. So I just want to give you that insight. Even as a fellow Marine, I admire both of you for what you're doing. Um, I want to make somewhat of a pivot, not to lighten up things too much, but I did spend a little time at Parris Island as a drill instructor, trained about 600 young men to become Marines. Now, we've all seen that famous poster with the drill instructor looking down at the recruit that states, "We don't promise you a rose garden." You remember that poster? Now, we don't always expect the hardships to continue, though, especially after we leave the military. Um, can you share an example of a time when you faced a difficult time in your life? And you've talked about a few of them, but is there one that stands out that you have at the ready to really, it's almost as if that's your frame of reference for every other hardship you've ever faced? And can you share how you overcame when you consider that lowest moment where you've had to come back? And I'll start with you. We'll go to you, Lapita.
Sure, I will share. This was more recently, about maybe 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was in a very, very toxic relationship, mentally, emotionally, physically, ended up being physically abused. Um, Not only did it happen to me, but it ended up where my daughter was involved, meaning he touched her. And for me, that was no, that's the last straw. I can forgive you, do anything to me, but my kids, no. So I found myself pretty much in the middle of the floor, just crying, just letting it out. I felt like, I had completely gone insane. I've lost myself. And I've been through a lot more difficult things in my life than just that. And so, obviously far worse. For some reason, this one felt just huge and just different. So I ended up talking to my doctor. I let him know what had happened. And he gave me some advice that I felt that it was, for me, was like it changed completely everything. And that's what I use now. He said, it's okay. It's okay for you to have gone insane. It's okay. But just remember to come back. Remember that it's okay to lose yourself, but you got to find yourself. And he mentioned that it was okay to feel. We're allowed to do that. We're allowed to have those feelings, because if we don't, then and get stuck there, then you're not progressing. You're not going to get any better. So feel what you feel, go with it, own it, and know it. So moving that and just knowing that that advice that he gave me, it's what got me through. Because now, whenever I face this difficult challenge or hardship, adversity, that's what I remember that conversation. And I said, nope, Lupe, get back up. You got this. You've gone through so much worse than this. And, that's what got me through. And it was something that I'll never forget, obviously, but definitely gave me the strength that I didn't even think that I had in me. And I found it.
And Rooster, what resides in your memory as that moment where you've had to uh, climb from the deepest pits of your emotions, and an experience where you would offer is that point where every other hardship is indexed against that time in your life?
Well, I mean, Sherman, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, losing a child can instantly. I don't know how I'll get to a lower spot than that. But rather than finding myself always kind of using that as a benchmark, I like to take it a different way. It's this idea that like every single day, there's an opportunity for us to have high points and low points. And every week, sometimes the low points will be lower than they were yesterday, and maybe sometimes the high points will be higher than they were 3 or 4 days ago. And so I think the key for me has been to just understand that there is a cycle to this. And earlier I mentioned the circle and the wave analogy. Like every single person in life, every person, their journey is one of a wave. And acknowledging that right now I feel really good and I'm really feeling as if I'm at the top of the wave. But knowing in your mind that you cannot ride the top of the wave every single day in perpetuity. Knowing that there's going to come a time when you do slip a little bit lower than the top of the wave. And you may even find yourself in a situation where you are finding a new low. But I think the key to this process is acknowledging this cycle so that when you do find yourself not at the top of the wave, you have established life routines that allow you to then climb back up. And for me, I found that through movement, through continuing to move, whether that's going for multiple walks with my wife and the dog, or doing the runs, continuing to get out there and to continue to move. But it's not just movement of the body; it's also movement of the mind, and finding those moments and those things that we can do that allow our minds to continue to develop and continue to learn new things, sharpen the saw, as we used to say in uniform. So ultimately, I'm not answering your question with a specific moment. I'm rather saying like every single person has moments and they happen every day. It's the key is how do we help ourselves recover from those moments in the shorter amount of time than maybe it took us a couple weeks prior. Is that acceptable? Is that answer acceptable, Sherman?
It's not only acceptable, it's remarkable as I think about, what I call the gravitational pull of hardship. The way you combat that is through constant movement that gives you the momentum to build up and push against that pull, that thing that's pulling you down. And you can only do that by building momentum and movement, which in many ways running does. I mean, we all have a mind and a body, but how we get it sound is the question. And in fact, when you think of the words sound mind and sound body, what does that mean to you, Rooster? And then we'll go to Lapita.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I'm wearing it. It's right here on my jacket. It says of sound mind, sound body. I love the way that origin, the origin of the concept goes back, and how ASICS has just immersed themselves in embracing the concept. Because in the world of Ainsley's Angels, which essentially is taking those with different abilities and partnering those up with folks that are called typically abled or able-bodied, we find that there are many times when the team goes for a run that sometimes the runner will be of sound body, but the person in the chair will be of the more sound mind. And what do I mean by that? So all the different abilities that you could imagine that Ainsley's Angels has experienced is every time we do something. Think of the person that's in the chair who may use a wheelchair to navigate life, but today they're in a running chair and they're now moving faster than they normally run. From a mind standpoint, they're in a different place, a place of exhilaration, a place of less worry, a place of accomplishment. The mind, although the body is present in the chair, not necessarily moving in the formation of a run like the runner behind. But what's the runner doing? Well, the runner's got the perfect body and the perfect, everything's working out in their mind, like sound body. But you know what's happening in their mind, really? They're worrying. They're worrying about the pace. They're worried about the person in the chair and whether or not they're comfortable. They're worried about whether or not we're going to get to where we need to be by mile 3 or 4, or maybe the bump in the road or the crowdedness. So suddenly the mind isn't as sound as the body is. And so to see those two teammates working together, the rider in the chair who's pulling the team with sound mind and the runner behind who's pushing with sound body, it's a perfect example of the power of not only movement, but the power of together, and how in syncing mind and body in the most perfect way, it's an unstoppable force. It's just beautiful to witness. And I appreciate the chance to try to articulate that here. So how do we help ourselves as one person have both sound mind and sound body? It goes back to what I said a minute ago. It's this idea that sometimes our mind's going to be synced and it's going to be working really well, and sometimes the body will, and sometimes they both will. But understand, the second that they both will, they're not going to stay there. It's just like the wave. They can come back down. But how do we tweak our routine in a way where we're comfortable enough to recognize when it's not of its most sound state? That's the key to growth, right, Sherman?
I agree. And you know what, Lapita, Rooster just explained the sort of the cycle of operation between the sound mind and the sound body, but 200 miles, I think you mentioned. I want to know what a sound mind and a sound body feels and operates like when it has to traverse 200 miles. What drives you, and how do you incorporate that same sort of operation into your daily life?
Well, as they say in the Marine Corps, mind over matter, right? So for me, it's focus. So there's been times where I've gone and done 100 miler, and physically I'm good to go, but mentally something was bothering me. Something was just not there, and I had to drop out at mile 20 because mentally I was not there. I just couldn't do it. So for a 200-mile run, it's really all mental. Your body is capable of doing so much that we do not even ever imagine. Especially me doing a 250-mile run. No way, 5'2", 120 pounds. There's no way. But for me, it was being focused. For me, sound mind, sound body, it powers me to run with passion, and in return to achieve that glory of honoring those veterans, and to, at the end, live life to the fullest, because not only am I helping myself, but I'm helping somebody else to let them know, like, hey, you're not alone. So mind, sound body, you have to have a healthy mind, because it will motivate you to move however we desire. In this case, to 200 miles. And when we move our bodies, we move with our minds to, become optimistic, energized, and have a clear mind. So for me to have been able to do that, and there's a lot of things, obviously, that helped me finish that, but it all started with me, because if I didn't have a clear mind, that focus, that passion, then I wouldn't have been able to complete what I wanted to achieve, and which I did, thanks to my team.
I've heard it said that mental health is physical health, and you can't necessarily separate the two. So I appreciate those insights. Our last question. Now, in the Marine Corps, we didn't always get the best gear, but when we did, we often treasured it like gold. Whenever I found a the right pair of Go Fasters, that's sneakers for all the civilians out there. It took me a long time before I'd give them up because they carry with it a symbolism and a tradition. Uh, and running a tire also makes all the difference, especially when you do your when we did our annual physical fitness tests. Do you have a favorite piece of gear that you run in, particularly a piece of ASICS gear that you run in that helps you get through those tough runs?
I do. I love their shorts. For me, after running so many miles, that chafing, yeah. No, so ASICS really has some awesome shorts that I really enjoy. So that for me it helps me not only for I look great in them, but as well as my body with the shaping because I deal with that really badly. So yeah.
My legs don't look as good as in shorts as others, so I may have to opt for the sweatpant option. Rooster, do you have a favorite piece of ASICS gear?
I mean, I'm wearing this one. I mean, this is pretty cool. It's a jacket, right? And the coolest thing about it, and you don't see this a lot in much of the men's gear, is that this particular jacket has that thing that can go around your thumb. And so it's real, a lot of women's gear has that, but there's not a whole lot of men's gear that has it. And I don't know why that is, or maybe that's just been my experience. But this one has it on both of them, and I like that, especially when you got like a breeze or a cool day. So all the ASICS gear that offers me my little thumb things, I'm liking them. That's my answer on it. But I would also say this: anytime you can find anything that makes you kind of enhance your mindset and feel more comfortable just moving, look, just embrace that. And it could be something really simple. Some people like to run with gum in their mouth. To me, that doesn't really work. But it's really about just finding something that works for you, that you can then look forward to introducing in and getting your mind kind of clear to help you keep moving forward. So if I was going to run right now, it's too hot for this. So I would be comfortable in frankly, just anything that allows me to just keep moving forward and not be distracted,
Well, this has been a great discussion as we've both gone down memory lane and also touched on the sobering reality of being a human being who faces hardship and in your cases have found ways to turn that hardship into purpose. So on behalf of all those people you serve, to include the Marines and veterans that you represent and honor with your work, I want to thank you on their behalf. I also want to thank your families because I assume that having that good base of support is important, whether it's our kids, whether it's a spouse, whether it's just having your neighbors and having good people around you. So whoever helped you get to this point, even with all of your intestinal fortitude, I'm always thankful for people around us who help keep us up. And so I want to close this ASICS panel out. Do you have any parting words or advice for anybody who may be listening or watching this presentation, has heard something you've talked about? I don't want to use the word trigger, but there are people who will hear certain things. And we always encourage people to have that place to go whenever those things happen. In fact, the National Organization on Mental Illness, where I work, we have a helpline that people can call in case they have one of those moments and they just want to talk to somebody about where to find support. You have any parting advice? Rooster, we'll start with you and with Lapita on what folks should do if they feel something isn't right and want to make that first step towards getting help.
Yeah, I mean, if you're at a point right now where you're feeling that something isn't right and you actually want to seek outside assistance, then I mean, the first step's the hardest part. So maybe hearing this conversation today, was this just coincidental, or was there a reason why you tuned in and listened to this 45-minute plus conversation? So let that be a sign and permission to go ahead and take that first step. We're giving you permission and an invitation to seek someone to pull up alongside of you, and know that there are so many people that would like to pull up alongside you, and you're not alone. You just have to take that first step, and then feel the 800 text messages that Lupita mentioned. Feel that, because there's going to be an overwhelming amount of folks that want to pull up alongside you. So take the first step, please.
And Lupita, any parting words of support or encouragement for somebody who might need it?
Yes, most definitely. Just remember, we all at one point in our lives face through, again, I mentioned it before, challenges, adversity, and hardships. Just remember, you're not alone. You are not alone. And also remember, if I can, you definitely can. We both can overcome.
And with that, I want to thank both of you. Semper Fi, Marines.
Semper Fi.
Hoorah. Hoorah. Thank you, Sherman.